Okay, let's move on to a story that caught my eye. There is a campaign running in social media called Save Our Shops. And actually, no, I'm going to let our interview subject basically unroll the story. But Save Our Shops purports to be a grassroots campaign against a government plan that plans to designate. At the moment, 6,000 outlets, retail outlets in New Zealand can sell tobacco products and within the advertising and other regulations we have, they can sell all tobacco products, full-strength tobacco products. The government has a plan to reduce that to 600. And apparently there is a grassroots movement called Save Our Shops that is against it. But is it all it seems? We are joined now by Professor Robert Beaglehole from ASH, which is a partly government-funded health lobby group against smoking. And I will declare I am a smoker and I'm an addict. I'm not a smoker. I'm a nicotine addict, and it's the worst. It is the worst habit I've got left. Robert, welcome to the program. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Look, I can remember as a young reporter, a very young reporter at Radio New Zealand, doing an investigative piece into a thing called the Children's Research Foundation.
Yeah.
And the Children's Research Foundation supposedly had all these psychological studies that showed that kids weren't influenced by tobacco advertising. It was all about brand awareness and everything. And we looked deeper with the help of a anti-tobacco lobbyist, or health lobbyist, let's call them, from Australia, called Dr. Michael Carr-Gregg. And we found that the whole thing was run by a tobacco company. The guy who was supposedly the psychologist making submissions to a New Zealand parliamentary committee was completely paid by a big tobacco company, and the whole thing was a sham. And I would have thought in the preceding, in the 30 years since, the tobacco industry might have stopped pulling rubbish like that. But it looks like you've discovered with Save Our Shops, they haven't.
Yes. Well, you're absolutely right, Sean. The tobacco industry hasn't changed its unfortunate behaviour. And from my point of view, it's extremely short-sighted of them, because we know it's a sham. We know this is not a grassroots community.
Okay, well, tell us specifically what you've found out and what's been found out about Save Our Shops.
Well, the Save Our Shops campaign has been funded by British American Tobacco and Imperial, and they're very explicit about that. They say that at the bottom of some of their advertisements, and they say that they're just helping struggling convenience store owners have their voice heard. But it's clearly a long...
So it isn't a small print down at the bottom of their ads?
Yeah.
Don't the ads have some guy from Lower Hutt, Bapal or someone, who says, I'm concerned about this? Is he a real person?
Yes. Well, there is someone by that name who lives in Lower Hutt and runs a store, but he actually has declined to be interviewed by the media. So he does exist, he doesn't seem to know anything about the campaign.
Okay. What about the Dairy Owners Association? Do they know anything about the campaign? People like Sonny Carshaw.
No, they say it's nothing to do with them. So it's clearly a manufactured campaign by the tobacco industry.
All right. Has this been done overseas as well? Often these things are based on blueprints of other campaigns overseas.
Yes, there's been similar campaigns run in the United Kingdom, for example. And this is not the first time that the tobacco industry in New Zealand has done this sort of thing.
All right. And what were they doing with this supposed grassroots social campaign? Were they trying to get people to make a submission to Parliament or sign a petition, or what? And
it was about signing a petition and about supporting convenience store owners in their desire to change the legislation, which is actually a lost cause in itself. This is no longer a government plan. This is a policy. It's coming into effect in the middle of next year. And by the way, the convenience store owners have had years and years to adjust to reducing sales of cigarettes.
Yeah, and I think even they admit this is a lost cause, that they have to plan for businesses without tobacco.
Indeed, and there are plenty of small shops around the country which have already made that transition and seem to be doing okay, haven't gone to the wall as this campaign threatens they will do it.
Yeah. All right, Robert, so you've caught these buggers out. Though, to be honest, you didn't have to be Sherlock Holmes probably to do that. Have they made any comment about the sham campaign?
They've sort of been very wishy-washy, declined to be interviewed, suggested that they are just helping the poor convenience store owners.
But we can't even find the poor convenience store owner who fronts this campaign. The official organisation for convenience store owners or dairy says we've got nothing to do with this. So it's just a big bloody sham. And as you know, I sometimes have issues with tax-funded wowsers like yourselves, but this is just such a classic get, to be honest.
Well, let me be clear, Sean. We're not tax-funded wowsers. There are two arms to ASH. One is an ASH Year 10 survey of smoking and vaping habits. That is funded by the Ministry of Health. The main activity of ASH, which is to promote evidence-based policy, is not funded by the taxpayers.
Who is it funded by?
Well, mostly from the Heart Foundation and individual donors.
Okay, and who's the Heart Foundation funded by?
Well, from charities.
And who are the charities funded by? They probably get grants from the government, Robert. Come on.
Not at all. No, it's from bequests and fundraising on streets. No, Sean, you've got that completely wrong. And the thing I'm going to say to you, Sean, about your remaining vice, man, get over it.
Look, I've got to say, and I'm probably a serious nicotine addict, but the one thing that does change is habitualness. And even, over the last 5-10 years, it is harder and harder to find somewhere that sells cigarettes, and that has changed my habit. So I will now go sometimes days, even weeks without smoking. Because it is not convenient. It's not convenient to buy cigarettes anymore. And it hasn't been social pressure or exclusion or you're a terrible smoker. It's simply been that it's harder to have a habit that is not convenient.
Well, in that case, the government policy to reduce the outlets from 6,000 to 600 might help people from you, especially if they transition to vaping, which is a much less harmful and much cheaper habit to have.
Yeah. And, Robert, that's interesting, though, and that's exactly where I was going to go next. And I just want to, at this stage, say if anyone from any of the tobacco companies wants to ring into the program and explain what went on with Save Our Shops, you are more than welcome to, and you could ring in right now if you wanted to. Don't hold your breath, Robert. I'm not. No. Let's look at vaping, because it seems as if, you like, the smoking habit dies out, or the people who do it die out. Vaping seems to have been, from the industry, the replacement product. And we are seeing, I think, an equal level of fervour over anti-vaping now develop. Is that where you guys pivot to next?
Well, we are delighted with the impact that vaping has had in reducing adult smoking rates. We're now down to 8% of adult smoking daily. Unprecedented declines in the last 2 or 3 years, which most likely is due to the uptake of vaping. The problem, and the government supports that and encourages that, and that will get us to the smoke-free 2025 goal. The downside is that it took the government the Labor New Zealand First government a long time to regulate vaping, during which case the industry went wild. They were sponsoring events, and music shows and so forth. And it got out of control. And it's been taken up now by 10% of young people, 14 and 15-year-olds, who vape daily. And that is a concern, but we need to sort of do more to help kids not take it up, stop if they have started to vape, at the same time not discouraging adult cigarette smokers, 2/3 of whom are going to die from cigarette smoking. And on average, those 2/3 will lose 10 years of their life. 5,000 New Zealanders die every year from smoking. So we've got to get the balance right, and we're doing okay in New Zealand.
Yeah.
We need to tighten up the regulations a bit more. We need to enforce them more. We need to educate young kids more. We need to support them.
Robert, how will this only 600 places in New Zealand are allowed to sell tobacco, how will we decide who those shops are? Because it would seem to me it'll be a licence to print bloody money.
Well, it's a very good question. The Ministry of Health is trying to sort that out. It will be a licence to print money on the one hand. It may also be a target on your front door for ram raids. Because you will
that's a terrible public policy, Robert, to say that if you sell that, we're quite happy for you to be the subject of, of crime.
Well, we don't know what will happen, but some convenience stores owners have said, we're not going to apply for a licence because every ram raid costs us $20,000 or $30,000. A couple of them a year would take out all the possible profits. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this policy is implemented, how many convenience store owners apply. I guess service stations will apply because they've got the bollards and so forth and so on. But it's going to be a tricky policy. It might help people like you who find the issue of convenience a big one. It might also be a problem for people who have to travel across town to get illegal cigarettes. So why don't they buy the cheap illegal products that are available on the corner?
Yeah, I hate vaping, though. I've tried vaping. It doesn't work for me.
No, go to a decent vape shop and get the best advice you can, the right device, the right flavour.
It's just like swapping one stupid habit for another one, Robert.
No, it's not, Sean. It's a much safer habit. It works on general. It's much cheaper, and it could save your life.
All right. Well, I would like to say to Ash and those who exposed what I just think is a very, very amateurish and outdated false public campaign, the Save Our Shops campaign. Well done, you guys, for hauling them up on it.
Is it even a legal campaign? Are they allowed to do it? It's a great area.
Disinformation, isn't it, Robert? It's real disinformation.
Yeah. And short-sighted. It doesn't do them any good.
Yeah. Hey, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Nice to talk. It's been a while.
Pleasure.
Cheers. Robert Beaglehole from ASH, anti-smoking and health advocates. So if you see a thing in social media for Save Our Shops, it's all bunk. It's just being funded by the advertising industry. They're trying to trick you into writing or signing a petition against what is now government policy, and that is about 6,000 places in this country sell tobacco. About halfway through next year, only 600 will, and how they're going to get their licences is going to be really, really interesting because I think they will be a licence to print money. And look, as much as I defend my right to smoke and my right to be an idiot around tobacco, and I really have, I'm smoking bugger all. Well, maybe I've come round on this issue. I don't like anyone's right to sell. As long as it's a legal product, I think you should be able to buy and sell it. I don't know. It's a tough one there. I haven't decided where my prejudices stand on this.